The hardest question daughters ask is, can a narcissistic mother ever change? Narcissists rarely ever change. The narcissists that I've heard of who have become self-aware, they are few and far between. They are actually managing their symptoms. The ones I have seen are not transformed into a non-narcissist. There isn't anything that you could ever have done or that you can ever do to get your mother to give you what she was never capable of giving you. The hardest question daughters ask is, can a narcissistic mother ever change? And it's a question I get asked a lot. And when I hear it, I usually answer with something like this. While anything is possible, the best thing you can do for your healing is to assume that your narcissistic mother is never going to change. And there are many reasons why I say this, but the three basic ones. Number one, narcissists rarely ever change. They might never change, but I would hesitate to use a word like never to make such sweeping statements because there are always exceptions to prove the rule, as they say. But as far as I can tell, narcissists aren't really capable of change. The narcissists that I've heard of who have become self-aware, who understand that they are narcissists, they are few and far between. And on top of that, from what I can see, they are actually managing their symptoms. Unless there are some that I have yet to find out about, the ones I have seen are not transformed into a non-narcissist. They are in treatment. They are constantly vigilant about managing their symptoms. They know who they are, and they have made the honorable decision to take care of themselves so they can stop hurting other people. And the ones I've heard of will say that they know that if they stop treatment, if they stop managing their symptoms in a vigilant way, they will go back to the way they were. Their mind will start doing its old tricks again. And so the evidence I've seen shows that narcissists don't really change. And I would invite you to assume that for that reason, your mother is not going to change either. The second reason I say it's best for you to assume your mother is not going to change is because it is wasting a lot of your energy. And you've already, I'm certain, wasted a whole bunch of energy, possibly since you were very, very young, trying to get your mother to change or responding to this hope that your mother can somehow change and see you and understand you and give you the empathy and compassion that you've always craved. You believe that it's up to you to facilitate this change through your actions, through trying to be good enough, perhaps by being perfect, saying something the right way, using the right order of words at the right time with the right tone. And what you may not understand, and I hope that hearing me say it like that will give you a bit of insight into how futile this is. This really is banging your head against the wall. It is not creating any kind of change, and it never will. And that's because she's not capable of change, but also because changing someone else is not under your control. You cannot change a person through changing yourself. There isn't anything that you could ever have done or that you can ever do to get your mother to give you what she was never capable of giving you. And so the more energy you spend on that fruitless task of trying to get her, trying to reach her, trying to obtain her understanding, that's the less energy that is available to give to yourself for your own healing. So this is codependency, this belief that your mother needs to change or anything outside of you needs to change in order for you to be okay. And that is simply not true. That might be very hard to understand because when you were a child, you believed, and Actually, it was kind of like a biological need to have a bond with your mother. So, in order to preserve that bond, you would abandon yourself and you would kind of adjust yourself and twist yourself into a pretzel and try to be whatever she needed you to be that day or that minute in order to please her and try to get acceptance from her. And that took all your energy. That was you in survival mode. That was you having no energy left over for yourself. Because remember, energy is finite. It does get used up, and that's why we burn out. That's why we get sick when we abandon ourselves, all of that kind of stuff. And so, if you continue to believe that my mother's capable of change, and therefore it's my responsibility to keep on trying to get her to change, you are really leading yourself down the wrong path. And you are leading yourself, in fact, down a path of destruction. And the third reason I tell people to forget about your mother changing in order for you to heal is that the part of you that believes that your mother can change is the little child part of you that tries to protect you with things that are bad for you. So, this is why we say that self sabotage is a form of self protection. It is that childish part of you that never got developed into a fully grown adult because you didn't have the people around you. You didn't have the adults around you who taught you how to develop yourself and to learn the skills to get along in the world and all of that, supported you, had your back. You had to do that all for yourself. So if you're a little child who is in this world that you find to be very scary, you feel all alone, you have to take care of yourself because nobody else is, and you might have your physical needs taken care of, but we're talking more about emotional needs here, which are just as important, if not more important sometimes. And you were just left to your own devices, and you were very oppressed by your mother and maybe other family members. You were made to feel like, you weren't enough, you didn't deserve anything, your needs didn't matter, all of this stuff. So you were in this really toxic soup, just trying to survive any way you could. So a child in that environment doesn't have the luxury of being curious about life. It doesn't have the luxury of self-development or curiosity about the self. It doesn't have the luxury of figuring out, what do I like? What do I want? How do I want to move in the world? What is my place in the world? All of that stuff. It's just trying to survive. So when you have that part of you running the show, driving your car, all of that stuff, it can't really be trusted to give you good information. It's giving you information that it believes is going to keep you alive, not information that is going to help you to thrive and have a really great, happy life and be free and fulfilled and all of that stuff. It's not concerned with that stuff. So when it tells you something like, yes, your mother can change, and it's up to you to make that happen, that is such an immature way of looking at things. And I don't mean any offense to you or your inner child when I say that. Children are immature. That's not an insult to a child at all. And so you have this child who is undeveloped, immature, trying to help you with its childish ways. And one of those ways is holding out hope that your mother will one day change. And it needs to do that because it believes, just like it did when you were a little child, that the bond with your mother is essential for survival. And there was a time when that was true, because if a mother abandons you or rejects you, you would be in a lot of trouble as an infant or a baby or a toddler or what have you. But unfortunately, even though that's no longer true and you do not need a bond with your mother to survive anymore at all, the child inside you still has that feeling. You feel that in your nervous system and your subconscious, all of that stuff. And if you've been listening to me, you know that the subconscious is what runs like 99% of your results. What happens in your life is based on your subconscious beliefs. And so you believe that the bond with mother is essential for my survival. So you gotta hope that she's gonna change and that one day she's gonna accept me. One day she's gonna love me. One day she's gonna have compassion and empathy for me. One day she's gonna put her arms around me and really mean it, like one day I'm gonna be okay because my mother understands me. She's gonna acknowledge all the pain she's caused me and she's gonna explain to me whatever the lie is for you, the fantasy, whatever it sounds like. That is the child in you believing that you need your mother to actually survive. And the job is to reparent that inner child. And we've talked about reparenting before. This is where you simply give the child inside of you the care and attention that it never received when it was actually a child. And so you've got to let it know that, in fact, I can survive without my mother. Even if my mother never changes, I will be okay. And I can actually have peace and happiness if nothing outside of me changes, not just mother, but anyone or anything outside of me doesn't dictate how I feel. And there are certain limitations to mother because she has a personality disorder. And so it's important for us to accept those limitations, because if we don't, we will continue banging our head against a wall, wasting a lot of energy, impairing our health, causing intense frustration, preventing our own healing, and preventing our own development into the fully grown and capable adult that we deserve to be. And so reparenting yourself is all about assuring the child that it will be okay. We will be okay without her. And remember that a lot of this is about processing the emotions around that. There's a lot of emotional bypassing that goes on when the inner child is in charge because she's afraid of emotions. So facing the pain of the fact that your mother won't change, it might be something that the child inside of you is avoiding. You want to look at that, right? You want to learn ways to soothe yourself through emotional pain. And I talk a lot about EFT tapping. That's one of the ways that I recommend, being with the painful or intense emotion and tapping through it so it's manageable. It is also about reminding the inner child that we have access to resources that we didn't when we were a little child back in the home. We really were dependent on her for survival back then. And for that reason, I'm grateful to you, little child, for helping us and for taking charge of things the way you did. And you did a really good job. But now we don't need her like we did back then. And we can, in fact, live without her. And now we actually have to find a way to live without her. It doesn't mean necessarily going no contact, though a lot of people choose that, but it means accepting the fact that she's not going to change and that our connection, if we stay in contact with each other, is going to look very different than that child dynamic that I had going on that was based on a fantasy of her being capable of things that she's actually not capable of. We have to face the truth. And so it's not about so much logic, because you might know that being logical with your inner child doesn't work because this is survival. Like survival trumps logic every time. But it's about soothing the child, reassuring the child, thanking the child, giving gratitude for what she has done for you so far, and definitely not pushing her away, just giving her a different role in your life. Sometimes I say that you want to be in the driver's seat of your life instead of your inner child, but the inner child can still be in the back seat, and that's where children belong. They don't belong driving the car, they belong in the back seat. And so you don't have to get rid of your inner child. And in fact, if you try to push her away, she's only gonna stay around more, because what we resist persists. And that is not just self-help talk. That is the truth. There is research that shows that pain that is resisted is more intense than pain that is accepted. And that goes for emotional pain as well. So it is true, what we resist persists. That's not just a saying. And so you want to put your arms around the inner child, but you are the adult now and you are taking charge. You are driving the car. You are dictating the terms. You're going to need to connect with your inner child in order to do this because she might not trust you at first. She's been taking care of you, depending where you are on the journey. She's been taking care of you all this time and you're here. So she's done a pretty good job, right? Like she has helped you survive. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And so it's not just about using logic. It's more about the gratitude for what she's done. It's the soothing through the painful, truthful emotions rather than denying them or pushing them away. And it's also reassuring her that she doesn't need to do this anymore and she can do something different for you. Perhaps she can find something fun for you to do because a lot of daughters of narcissistic mothers don't have hobbies. We've been so busy surviving that hobbies, there hasn't really been a lot of room for that. We can never put our shoulders down and relax enough to even have a hobby. And so, doing something that's just for fun can be your inner child's new job. But that is the advice I would give. So I would say if you have asked yourself that question, even after you've done your research and all the evidence you have that no matter what you do, your mother doesn't change, then this advice is for you. So the answer to the question is what I said, anything's possible. And in fact, as you do this work, you'll find that more and more things are possible for you. You're going to have a life that you never imagined possible. But just because anything's possible isn't something to base your hope on. The very slim chance that your mother might be the only narcissist to ever change. Better to use that energy to heal yourself and recover from what she's put you through and the outcomes of that narcissistic abuse than to continue in the childlike way of banging your head against a wall, trying to be whatever your mother needs you to be in order to effect some kind of change in her that we know is never going to come. So I hope you see that this is not hopelessness. This is an adult, a mature, accepting what is true instead of the immature child creating a fantasy because it believes that you need a bond with your mother in order to survive. So I hope this has been helpful to you. Thank you very much for listening, and I will talk to you next time.